Hi guys, and welcome back to another DrAce video, and today we're going to be playing Ride 4, and today I'm going to be giving you some more advice on how to handle the motorcycle within Ride 4. Now at the top of the screen you can quite clearly see my controller overlay, and this is going to be showing you all of my inputs for how I tackle Ride 4. So things to very important to note is that the right trigger is obviously the acceleration, the left trigger being the front brake, square being the rear brake, and X being my tuck-in button. Now triangle and circle are also my up shifts for triangle and circle for down shifts, but something else I want you to pay attention to as well is the left analog stick. Now the left analog stick has its weight pushing forward and its weight pushing backwards at specific points. I will explain this further on, but for the time being, just something to mention for now. So for the first thing, let's discuss, and that is throttle control. I've done a video on throttle control before, and just understanding how much acceleration is required to press and how much is required to hold in certain corners, and this is going to hopefully give you a good indication with the aid of the guide in the bottom right corner as well, with the gauge in the Ride 4 game. But I thought with the controller it's just a little bit easier to notice and understand. But there are going to be a few things you're going to question in this one, and I'm more than happy to answer all the questions you have, so chuck it in the comment section down below if you do have a question. Now something to mention is that auto tuck-in is disabled. I do have manual tuck-in, so it's very important for me to hold the X button when on straights. Now I use the X button on straights because I find that's a nice position for my thumb, and it also enables me to get closer to the rear brake when I need to use it for specific corners. Now you don't need to be using the rear brake for every corner, because of course the rear brake in Ride 4 is rather strong, so only use it in the tougher braking zones, like this one perhaps. Braking in, chucking in the rear, sliding it into the outward curve, and then bringing on the power nice and gently with the tuck-in button enabled, pushing out of the corner. Now with the tuck-in button enabled, wherever you push that analog stick, either forwards or backwards, it will not impact your rider's speed. If you have auto tuck-in enabled and you move the left analog stick forwards or backwards, the rider's weight will change. So for this video you're going to see that I actually prepare myself for corners before I even get there by using the X button as the tuck-in and pushing backwards on the left analog stick prematurely before we get into the corner. Now if you watch my braking guide, I did mention that the left analog stick can be used as a sort of parachute, if you will, so if you push backwards when under braking, it will help the rider put the weight into the back of the bike and stop it from endoing or stopping when bringing on the brakes. Very important to make sure you're stable and smooth under braking. Now something I will confess or mention, is depending on your opinion, I am using semi-automatic gears. Now I tend to let the game do the auto shifts upwards, and then I'll tend to do all the downshifts myself. Now for other games like MotoGP 22, this is not really something that you can take advantage of, because you really do need to sort of do both at the same time. And you can still use semi-automatic, which I do on MotoGP, but I always tend to do the upshifts as well as the downshifts. It just may be once or twice a race where I'll not bother upshifting and let the game do itself. You don't necessarily lose any particular speed, but it's something to look into if you're looking to start off, rather than just trying to tackle all the manual gears at the same time. So that's the basics, so let's piece it all together then. So for now, I'm going to be using a lot of gentle movements with that left analog stick. You can really see the left analog stick, it never stops working. We're always pushing it into the direction, we're always pushing it forwards, coming out of corners to get the angle right, and then coming into the braking zone, we're pushing backwards, and then moving it to the left hand side. The analog stick pretty much never ever stops working. And something I really want to stress is that there is no flick with the left analog stick, and what I mean by that is most new players will start to flick the left analog stick as if it was moving in increments rather than one smooth fluid motion. Now you can see the difference coming out of certain corners there. If you were to flick the controller, you would never get the perfect angle of the controller because of the increment of movement. Where this time it's nice and smooth, it's pointing to the direction you want to be, and it gently moves across where it needs to be. Yes, there are going to be some corners where you do need to move quickly, but it's not flicking the controller, because flicking it doesn't give you the right accuracy for the corner, and also sends the rider's weight out of whack, which will then probably cause a crash. So just be very careful if you do have the habit of flicking. Get into the idea of rotating the analog stick in a gentle, smooth motion. I cannot stress that enough, and you can see it quite clearly on the controller overlay. It is very, very smooth. And once again, I will repeat myself regarding the pushing backwards on the analog stick. If you're holding in the tuck-in button, you can push the analog stick forwards or backwards, and it will not impact the rider's positioning on the bike. The only thing it does help with is preparing you for when you release the tuck-in, you're already in that position to push the rider's weight up backwards and then to lean into the corner. Now, something you will notice, which I hope you have noticed so far, is the rider's weight moves quite early before the corner. So approaching up to this right-hander now, we're already leaning in well before we got to the Mike Knight corner. And that is because the rider's weight needs to gradually position itself and gradually lean into the corner rather than getting to the corner and going full lean. Something I've seen a lot when I was at Brands Hatch and Donington Park teaching players how to play Ride 4. A lot of them found themselves going into the corner too late and then trying to turn at full lean angle on the latest possible point. Impossible. It's not going to happen. You need to move really, really early, much earlier than you think you do sometimes, especially compared to car racing, for example. But now as we go into the upward curve once more, I do want to move across a little bit now to the acceleration and understanding how to bring on the power. Now this is the Kawasaki ZX6R, so it's not the most powerful of bikes, so you can use quite a lot of throttle, but at the same time, going into this really difficult right-hand here, you're going to see how much acceleration is being applied. I've sort of come up with the idea of gently tapping and gently putting pressure on the controller for the right trigger, rather than just holding it, letting go, holding, letting go. It's just gently tapping it. You can find the balance with a nice little amount of acceleration as well, but also at the same time, balancing the throttle can really help coming out of some corners, because the bike is not going full kilter, so it's not going to start sliding the rear, it's not going to send you wide into the corner. It's a nice balance of acceleration, just bringing it on at the right moment, in combined with the tuck-in button and in combining with the left analog stick. You can really get good acceleration out of certain corners without wheeling and without spinning up the rear tyre. Now for this video, the traction control setting has been turned off and anti-wheelie has also been turned off as well. So this is just pure controller work right now, with no assists stopping us or even aiding us right now. So once again we're going to the outward curve. I guess we should shift over now to the brakes. I guess the brakes are very, very important. I have done a full complete video on brakes themselves, and I've actually done videos on all of these topics, but it's nice just to have a refresher, and maybe if you're new to the game, this one's the first one you see, we can always show you this one anyway. So for braking, it's very important that you understand how much brake is needed to be applied before you start tackling some of these corners. Because something I want you to mention, or at least to notice, is that not all the time is the front brake getting slammed on. For the difficult corners, yes, the front brake will get heavily used, but to the right hand side here, the controller didn't even reach 80% of brake. To this right hand side here, we might not even brake. You can actually go in there just gently on acceleration, but I prefer going for a little bit of brake. Into the final corner, a little bit of brake, just gradually brought up the trail brake up to about 75% and then released on the brakes. So going into the first corner, because it's a straight line braking, we are going to go full brakes here, but gently reduce the brake as we get closer and closer to the corner. That is called trail braking. So trail braking into the corner, where you gradually hold onto the brake and then gradually release it as you get to the apex, that is trail braking. Something that again will take a little bit of time to get used to, but these are key points in improving your riding style and improving your lap times as well, because of course trail braking into corners just gives you that chance to really close the apex and also reduce the understeer. So if you're really struggling thinking that, oh, the bike just constantly doesn't turn where I want it to turn, use a little bit of trail brake, but only a little bit, because if you use too much, you will lose the front, and we don't want that to happen. No, we do not. So to the left hand side then, for the very difficult revolver corner, nice and gentle on the acceleration, bringing on the tuck-in button on as well, as we now go to the left hand side, and then bringing on the acceleration. Now something I can improve on as well, and I don't really notice a difference, I have tried both of it, but it's worth mentioning. The tuck-in button should only be applied when coming out of the corner, when the angle of the bike is perfect. And what I'm going to explain further is that when your bike is pointing to the release of the next corner, so coming out of the corner, it's then pointing straight, then you should bring on the tuck-in button and the acceleration. Now if you bring the tuck-in button on too early, it can send you a little bit wide into the corner, and it also could send you onto the rumble strip and onto the grass because, well, you're reducing the angle the rider can lean at because he's tucking in. So that's how important the tuck-in button is, but it also really helps for coming out of corners at the right point. With tuck-in enabled, you can pick up a lot of speed. So it's very important that you get used to the tuck-in button. You don't have to use it necessarily. Some of the fastest riders I know don't use the tuck-in button, but for my style and the way I found to play, I do find it easier if we use the tuck-in button and position ourselves for corners before it by pushing backwards on the analog stick, and then when we're ready, we release the tuck-in button, move over to the rear brake, move over to the front brake, and slam them both on for some very, very difficult corners. So that is pretty much the gist of it. I've pretty much covered everything with the controller, but I'm more than happy to look into these in further detail for more advanced players if required. There can be a few more tips and tricks I can offer so you guys can pick up a few more tenths or even a whole second on some of your lap times. I think that's very, very important, of course, as well. If you do want to be part of the DrAce Academy, where I'll teach many riders, and we even got other riders to teach you within our Discord server, you're more than welcome to join us within the link in the description down below. We're coming up to our 8th lap completed now. We've got a couple more laps in us, and let's see if we can improve this lap time. So this time around, forgetting about the controller overlay, I'm just going to give it my best shot, and hopefully we can get a good lap time. So moving the rider's weight in nice and early for the left hand side here, gently moving the analog stick up to a neutral position. You can see it in the left hand side there as it gently positions itself and maneuvers itself nice and early before the corners. But into the outward curve, we're going to go to the right hand side, just gently holding onto the acceleration there. You probably noticed that in the top right hand corner there, just gradually holding onto the acceleration, about 50%, just enough to get us around the corner. Because the one thing you don't want to be doing is freewheeling on the bike. That's not a good thing to do. You cannot go into some corners just letting the bike roll. Doesn't really happen. You need some acceleration to keep the tyres gripped, otherwise you'll probably end up crashing. So it'd be good to make sure that you're really holding on to acceleration when you need to, and only balance acceleration when required for specific corners. So into the final sector now. A difficult part of the circuit, this one, but it's all about being really gentle and very casual with the controller. This time around it didn't go quite casual. I went too early on the tuck-in button and a bit eager on the acceleration, but we're still neck and neck with the Ghost as we now bring on the power, line the motorcycle up very gently. That's where the very gentle movements of the analog stick helps out, because you can see the rider can just slowly position his rider weight where he needs to be rather than just throwing him into the left or to the right. But nice and tight to the apex of the first corner. We'll now lunge to the left hand side, but gradually move the analog stick into the corner, begin to lean the analog stick back upwards to a neutral state, position it to the left and launch it to the right hand side, careful of touching the rumble strip there, and now hard on the brakes will go for the outward curve. So now gently bringing on the acceleration but pointing the bike into the right hand side, we can now bring on the tuck-in button and fire down the back straight, already preparing ourselves with that left analog stick. That's because the tuck-in button is enabled. Reduce the tuck-in button, use the rear brake and the front brake, and there we go. With the bike is still exactly where we need it to be. Swing it right here a little bit just to get the nice tight apex revolver. Bring on the power, reduce the tuck-in button here, now go to the left hand side. Gently trail brake in, bring on the power, slightly early there in the power there, just to see the bike just slipped out ever so slightly. But now into the tough apex for Redman. Very, very tight there, beautifully done. As we want to do the same thing here for the right hand side, nice and tight. Got it pretty well, bringing on the power. Going to trail brake a little bit just to cut the understeer down here for Mike Knight corner. Same can be said here for the final corner, nice and tight. Gentle on the acceleration, but bringing on the power. We look like we are going to improve, but it's not going to be a very, very small improvement. So guys, that is it. I really hope this video has helped you. If you're looking for more tips and tricks, I do have many more on the channel. But if you're looking for more guidance and just a few assistance, let me know in the comment section down below. Consider joining the Discord server, or the DrAce Academy, of course, as we like to call it. And I guess that's it. So more than happy to help if you need any more assistance. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.
Oh hi! Didn't quite see you there. Good to see you're still here. If this video didn't quite set your appetite, then why not watch some more DrAce content by clicking the video shown on screen now. Furthermore, if you would like to follow me on social media, you can do so now with the links down in the description. Consider subscribing so you don't miss a single DrAce video.